The stars had been quiet for 2,000 years. Kira Okonkwo stood at the observation window of Earth's orbital station 7, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. She was the ambassador of Earth, a title that meant very little to anyone, except humans. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity long ago. They were a small species, locked away in their tiny corner of space, and that was exactly how the Valith Dominion wanted it. 2,000 years ago, humanity had reached for the stars. They built ships. They dreamed of exploration. They met other species and hoped for friendship. They found the Valith instead. The Valith Dominion controlled 3/4 of the known galaxy. They had ruled for 10,000 years. When they discovered humanity, they saw nothing special. Just another primitive species. Just another world to add to their collection. They attacked Earth without warning. Millions died in the first week. Humanity fought back. They fought hard. They fought with everything they had. But it was not enough. The Valith had weapons that humanity could not understand. They had ships that moved faster than light. They had armies beyond counting. After 5 years of war, Earth surrendered. The Valith offered a choice: complete destruction, or the covenant of eternal stillness. Humanity would be allowed to live, but only within their own solar system. No expansion, no exploration, no contact with other species without Dominion permission. Earth would become a cage, and humanity would become prisoners. They accepted. What choice did they have? The generations that followed learned to live in their cage. They stopped looking at the stars with hope. The military became ceremonial, more about parades than battles. War became something from history books. Children grew up never knowing conflict, and slowly, the galaxy forgot that humanity existed at all. Kira thought about this history as she prepared for another meaningless diplomatic meeting. The Valith ambassador rarely even looked at her during these sessions. To them, she was furniture, background noise, a formality they tolerated out of ancient treaty obligations. Her assistant, a young man named Thomas Chen, entered the observation room. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "Ambassador," he said. His voice cracked. "Something has happened." Kira turned from the window. In 30 years of diplomatic service, she had never seen Thomas look so disturbed. "What is it?" Thomas could not speak. He simply handed her a data tablet. Kira read the report. Then she read it again. The words did not change. They burned into her mind like fire. The colony ship Hopeful Dawn had been traveling through neutral space. It was a refugee vessel, carrying families from the outer settlements to new homes on Mars. The ship had strayed too close to Dominion patrol routes. A Valith fleet had intercepted them. The Hopeful Dawn was not a military vessel. It carried no weapons. It posed no threat. The captain had immediately surrendered and requested safe passage. The Valith commander had refused. He said the ship had entered restricted space. He said humans needed to learn their place. He said he would make an example. The Valith fleet opened fire. The Hopeful Dawn was destroyed in less than 3 minutes. 2,847 people died. Men, women, children, families who had done nothing wrong. People who simply wanted a better life. Among them were 340 children from the Meridian Orphanage. Kira's hands began to shake. She had visited that orphanage once, years ago. She remembered the children's faces. She remembered their laughter. She remembered how they asked her questions about the stars, about the galaxy, about whether humanity would ever be free. Now they were gone, turned to dust and debris in the cold void of space. "The Dominion has issued a response," Thomas said quietly. "They say it was regrettable. They say the ship should not have been there. They say humans should learn to stay in their cage." Kira set down the tablet. Her hands were steady now. Something cold had settled in her chest, something she did not recognize. "Call a meeting of the United Earth Council," she said. "Emergency session. All members." Thomas nodded and hurried away. Kira turned back to the window. Earth looked so peaceful from up here. So blue. So beautiful. For 2,000 years, her people had kept that peace. They had swallowed their pride. They had accepted their cage. They had told themselves that survival was enough. But there were some things that could not be forgiven. The council met within hours. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the Great Chamber. They had all seen the report. They had all watched the footage. A Valith patrol ship had recorded the attack and broadcast it as a warning to other species. "Look what happens when you challenge the Dominion." The chamber was silent. No one knew what to say. For 2,000 years, they had trained themselves to accept, to endure, to survive. Then Admiral Helena Vasquez stood. She was old. Her hair was gray. Her uniform was ceremonial, covered in medals for service that had never seen combat. No living human had ever commanded a warship in battle. The very concept seemed like ancient history, but Helena Vasquez had spent her entire life preparing for a day she hoped would never come. "They killed our children," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the silent chamber. "They killed 340 orphans who had no home except the one we were trying to give them." And they laughed. They broadcast it to the galaxy as entertainment. She looked around the room. Every eye was on her. For 2,000 years, we have been silent. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. We told ourselves that this was wisdom. We told ourselves that this was strength. But there is a difference between peace and surrender. There is a difference between patience and cowardice. Helena's voice grew stronger. "They believe we have forgotten what we are. They believe we have become soft. They believe we have lost the fire that once made us fight against impossible odds." She paused. "They are wrong." The chamber stirred. Something was changing. Something was waking up. "I will not pretend that I have never thought of this day," Helena continued. "I will not pretend that our military academies have spent 2,000 years doing nothing. Every battle the Dominion has ever fought, we have studied. Every weapon they have built, we have analyzed. Every weakness they have shown, we have remembered." She pressed a button on her console. The main screen flickered to life. The council gasped. They were looking at a fleet. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. Vessels that had been built in secret, hidden beneath Earth's crust, buried under Luna's surface, assembled piece by piece in the asteroid belt. Ships designed by generations of engineers who had nothing to do but imagine war. "We have been preparing," Helena said simply, "just in case. And now, that case has arrived." She faced the council. "I am not asking for revenge. I am asking for justice. Those children deserved better. Those families deserved better. Our people deserve better. The galaxy needs to learn that there are lines that cannot be crossed, and we are going to teach them." The vote was called. One by one, the representatives spoke. Yes, 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 yes. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in 2,000 years, humanity declared war. In her quarters that night, Kira Okonkwo sat alone. She held a photograph in her hands. It showed her at the Meridian Orphanage, surrounded by smiling children. One little girl had been holding her hand. That little girl was gone now. Kira placed the photograph on her desk. Tomorrow, she would deliver Earth's declaration to the Dominion. She would look into the eyes of the Valith ambassador and tell them what was coming. She was not afraid. For the first time in 2,000 years, humanity was done being silent, and the galaxy would never forget what came next. High Sovereign Zelthar ruled the Valith Dominion from his throne on the homeworld of Valithos. He had held this position for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions. He had conquered worlds. He had brought entire species to their knees. When his advisors told him that Earth had declared war, he laughed. "The humans?" He leaned back on his throne, his forearms spread wide in amusement. "The little apes in their little cage? They declared war on us?" His chief advisor, a nervous creature named Sorath, nodded carefully. "Yes, High Sovereign. Their ambassador delivered the message this morning. They demand justice for the destroyed ship. They demand the commanders responsible be handed over for trial." Zelthar laughed again. The sound echoed through the great hall. His courtiers laughed with him. This was the funniest thing they had heard in centuries. "How wonderful," Zelthar said. "How absolutely wonderful. I was growing bored with peace. Let us see what the humans can do with their ceremonial ships and their parade soldiers." He waved his hand dismissively. "Send a patrol fleet. Remind them of their place. Perhaps destroy another ship or two. They will learn." Sorath hesitated. "High Sovereign, perhaps we should be cautious. We do not know what they—" "Cautious?" Xelthar's eyes narrowed. "Of humans? They are primitives. They are insects. They have been locked in their cage for 2,000 years. What could they possibly do to threaten the Dominion?" He turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast this declaration across the Dominion. Let everyone see how pathetic these humans are. Let them laugh at this foolishness." The broadcast went out to 1 trillion viewers across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered by the Dominion watched as the human ambassador delivered her message. Most of them felt sorry for humanity. This was suicide. The Valith would crush them within days. But deep in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, some species watched with different eyes. They remembered what the humans had been like 2,000 years ago. They remembered how hard the humans had fought. They remembered the fire. They wondered if that fire was still burning. Admiral Helena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Awakening, the flagship of Earth's true fleet. Around her, thousands of ships emerged from their hiding places. They rose from beneath the ice of Europa. They launched from hollowed-out asteroids. They appeared from underground bases on Luna and Mars. For 2,000 years, humanity had built in secret. Every generation added more. Every scientist contributed. Every engineer left their mark. They never knew if these ships would be needed. They hoped they would not be. But they built them anyway. Just in case. Helena looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was not the largest in the galaxy. It was not even close. But size was not everything. The Valith built their ships for intimidation. They built massive vessels with impressive weapons, designed to frighten primitive species into surrender. Humanity had built their ships for war. All vessels report ready, her first officer announced. Commander James Wright was young for his position, but Helena had trained him personally. He would not fail. The Dominion patrol fleet is approaching, the sensor officer reported. 50 vessels. Standard Valith configuration. They are broadcasting a demand for surrender. Helena smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Let them come close, she said. Let them see what we have built. The Valith fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel with confidence. Their commander, Vexith, was the same officer who had ordered the destruction of the hopeful Dawn. He had been given this mission as a reward for that action. The High Sovereign wanted him to finish what he started. Vexith looked at his sensors and frowned. There were more human ships than expected. Many more. But numbers meant nothing. Human technology was 2,000 years behind the Dominion. Target the largest vessel, he ordered. Destroy it first. The rest will flee. His weapons officer obeyed. Energy weapons charged. Targeting systems locked on. Nothing happened. Report, Vexith demanded. I do not understand, the weapons officer stammered. Our weapons are not responding. Our shields are offline. Our engines are. The lights went out. Across the entire Valith fleet, every ship went dark. Power systems failed. Weapons went cold. Life support began to fade. On the Awakening, Helena watched with satisfaction. Humanity has had 2,000 years to study Valith technology, she said calmly. 2,000 years to find every weakness, every flaw, every vulnerability. Did they think we were doing nothing in our cage? Did they think we were simply waiting to die? She pressed a button on her command console. Attention Valith Fleet. This is Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Earth Navy. Your ships have been disabled. Your weapons are useless. Your lives are in our hands. She paused to let the words sink in. 50 of your ships against 200 of ours, and we did not fire a single shot. Think about that. Think about what we could do if we wanted to destroy you. On his dying bridge, Commander Vexith listened in horror. Emergency lighting flickered around him. His crew scrambled desperately at useless controls. You killed our children, Helena continued. You laughed about it. You broadcast it as entertainment. Commander Vexith, I know you are listening. I know you gave the order, and I want you to understand something very clearly. Her voice grew hard as steel. We are not here to conquer. We are not here for territory. We are not here for resources. We are here for justice. We are here for those 340 children. And we will not stop until we have it. She ended the transmission. The Valith fleet drifted helplessly as human ships surrounded them. But Helena had spoken the truth. They did not fire. Instead, small craft emerged from the human vessels. Boarding teams, rescue teams, the Valith prisoners were taken. Their ships were captured. Not a single life was lost on either side. Word spread across the galaxy within hours. The humans had defeated 50 Valith warships without firing a weapon. They had captured Commander Vexith alive. They had taken prisoners and treated them humanely. This was not how wars were fought in the Dominion. High Sovereign Zelthar stopped laughing when he heard the news. How is this possible? He demanded. His advisors cowered before him. 2,000 years. They have been caged for 2,000 years. How do they have ships? How do they have weapons? How did they disable our fleet? No one had answers. Zelthar slammed his fist against his throne. Send more ships. Send a proper fleet. Crush them. Soreth stepped forward carefully. High Sovereign. Perhaps negotiation might. No negotiation. Zelthar roared. No discussion. They are insects. They will be reminded of their place. Send the 3rd battle fleet. Send the 5th. Send them all if you must. I want those humans destroyed. Orders went out across the Dominion. Fleets began to gather. The full military might of the Vaylith was preparing to move. On the awakening, Helena received the intelligence reports. She nodded slowly. They are mobilizing everything, Commander Wright said. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. They are taking this seriously now. Helena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vaylith were gathering their strength. They thought numbers would save them. They thought overwhelming force would be enough. They still did not understand. Good, Helena said. Let them come with everything they have. Let them throw their full strength against us. Because when we break them, and we will break them, the entire galaxy will see. She turned to her crew. We did not start this war. We did not want this war. But we will finish it. Those children deserve nothing less. The crew saluted. Every eye was bright with determination. Humanity had been silent for 2,000 years. Now their voice would shake the stars. And this was only the beginning. Varath Prime was the 3rd most important world in the Vaylith Dominion. It served as the main military headquarters for the entire eastern sector of their empire. 600 warships were stationed there. 3 orbital defense platforms protected the planet. 3 billion soldiers, officers, and support personnel called it home. The Dominion believed it was untouchable. Admiral Vasquez attacked it anyway. The human fleet arrived without warning. Vaylith sensors detected nothing until the ships were already there. This was impossible. Faster-than-light travel created energy signatures that could be detected hours in advance. But human engineers had solved that problem decades ago. They had solved many problems while sitting in their cage. Fleet Commander Korath was in charge of Varath Prime's defenses. He was a veteran of many campaigns. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. He had never lost a battle. He ordered his 600 ships to engage. The first wave of Vaylith vessels attacked with everything they had. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles launched by the thousands. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships simply moved. They did not dodge like other species. They did not use shields to absorb damage. They moved like something alive, sliding between weapons, fire with impossible grace. Their drives operated on principles the Vaylith had never seen. 2,000 years of secret development had given humanity engines that could turn thought into motion. The Vaylith weapons hit nothing but empty space. Then the humans fired back. Human weapons did not work like Vaylith weapons. They did not throw energy or explosives. Instead, they sent signals, codes, instructions. 2,000 years ago, humanity had captured Vaylith technology during the First Contact War. For 2 millennia, they had studied it, taken it apart, understood it completely. They knew every system, every protocol, every weakness. The Vaylith had never updated their basic operating systems. Why would they? No species had ever challenged them. No species had ever needed to. One by one, Vaylith ships went dark. Power failed. Weapons died. Controls stopped responding. Some ships simply shut down. Others turned on each other as their targeting systems went mad. The orbital defense platforms began firing at their own fleet. It was chaos. Commander Yuki Tanaka led the ground assault. Her shuttle descended through Varath Prime's atmosphere while the space battle raged above. She was calm. She had trained for this her entire life. Behind her, 1,000 human soldiers prepared for combat. They wore armor that the Vaylith could not detect. They carried weapons that the Vaylith could not stop. They had studied every Vaylith fighting technique, every tactical doctrine, every response pattern. The shuttle landed in the central military district. Vaylith soldiers surrounded the landing zone immediately. They outnumbered the humans 1,000 to 1. It did not matter. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Human soldiers moved through the Vaylith defenders like water through sand. They did not fight like the Vaylith expected. They did not charge or hold lines. They flowed. They adapted. Every movement was perfect. Every action was precise. 2,000 years of peace had given humanity time to perfect the art of war. Tanaka herself reached the command center within those 4 minutes. She kicked down the reinforced door like it was made of paper. Inside, Commander Korath stood with his personal guard. "Surrender," Tanaka said. Her voice was steady. "Your fleet is disabled. Your defenses have fallen. There is no need for more death." Korath stared at her in disbelief. How? How is this possible? You are primitives. You are nothing. We were never nothing," Tanaka replied. "You just never bothered to look." Korath drew his weapon. His guards did the same. 20 seconds later, they were all unconscious. Not dead. Tanaka had specifically ordered non-lethal force wherever possible. Humanity was not here for slaughter. They were here for justice. The battle for Vareth Prime lasted 17 minutes total. 600 Valith warships were captured or disabled. 3 orbital platforms were taken intact. 3 billion people surrendered without further resistance when they saw their entire military brought down like children playing at war. Not a single civilian was harmed. Admiral Vasquez broadcast a message to the planet and the galaxy beyond. "People of Vareth Prime, you are not our enemies. Your soldiers are not our enemies. We have no desire to occupy your world or destroy your lives. Our quarrel is with those who ordered the murder of our children. Our quarrel is with those who laughed while innocents died." She paused. "You will be treated with respect. Your wounded will be cared for. Your prisoners will be returned unharmed when this conflict ends. We are not the monsters your leaders told you we were. We are simply people who will not allow our children to be murdered without consequence." Across the galaxy, species watched in amazement. This was not how the Dominion's enemies behaved. When the Valith conquered a world, they burned everything. They killed without mercy. They made examples of anyone who resisted. The humans did the opposite. Medical teams landed on Vareth Prime within hours. They treated Valith, wounded alongside human injuries. They distributed food and supplies to areas damaged in the battle. They helped restore power to civilian districts. One Valith soldier, badly injured in the fighting, woke up in a human medical tent. A human doctor was treating his wounds. "Why?" the soldier asked weakly. "Why are you helping me?" "We are enemies." The doctor, an older woman with gentle hands, looked at him with sad eyes. "You are a soldier. You were following orders. That does not make you evil." She finished bandaging his arm. "We are not here to hurt people who were just doing their jobs. We are here for the ones who gave the orders, the ones who chose to kill our children." The soldier did not understand. He had fought in many campaigns. He had seen what happened to defeated enemies. Mercy was not part of that experience. But the humans were different. They were strange. They were terrifying in battle but gentle in victory. They were unlike anything he had ever known. News of Vareth Prime's fall reached High Sovereign Zelthar within hours. He sat in his throne room, surrounded by his advisors, and read the reports in silence. 600 ships, 17 minutes, no civilian casualties. He began to understand his mistake. The humans were not primitives who had gotten lucky. They were not a minor annoyance to be crushed. They were something else entirely. Something that had been hiding for 2,000 years. Something that had been waiting, and now it was awake. "Summon every fleet in the Dominion," Zelthar ordered quietly. "Every ship, every soldier. Recall them all to the homeworld." Soreth stepped forward. "High Sovereign, should we not negotiate? Offer them something? They clearly only want justice," Zelthar interrupted. "They want the commanders who ordered that attack. They want me to bow to primitives." His 4 hands clenched into fists. "I would rather see the Dominion burn." The orders went out. The largest military mobilization in Valith history began. Every ship was recalled. Every soldier was summoned. The Dominion was preparing for a final stand. On the awakening, Admiral Vasquez received the intelligence. She nodded slowly. "He is gathering everything to protect the homeworld," Commander Wright observed. "If we attack there, it will be the hardest fight humanity has ever faced." Vasquez looked at the tactical display. Thousands of Valith ships converging on a single point. "Then that is where we go," she said. "Not for conquest, not for destruction, but to end this, to get justice for those children." She thought of the photograph she kept in her quarters. 340 faces, 340 names. "Set a course for Valithos," she ordered. "It is time to finish what they started." The human fleet began to move. The galaxy held its breath. The Galactic Assembly had not met in emergency session for 500 years. It was a place where species gathered to discuss trade and borders under the watchful eye of the Dominion. Real power belonged to the Veilith. The assembly was just for show. But today was different. Ambassador Kira Okonkwo walked into the great chamber. She was the first human to ever address this body. Representatives from 100 species watched her approach the central platform. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with fear, a few with something that might have been hope. She stood at the podium and looked out at the gathered faces. 2,000 years ago, my people were caged, she began. Her voice was calm and clear. We were told to be silent. We were told to accept our place. We were told that this was the natural order of things. The strong rule. The weak obey. That is how the galaxy works. She paused. We accepted that cage. Not because we believed it was right, but because we had no choice. We buried our pride. We swallowed our anger. We told ourselves that survival was enough. For 2,000 years, we lived in silence. Kira's eyes hardened. And then the Veilith killed our children. She pressed a button on the podium. A holographic display appeared above her. 340 faces. Young faces. Smiling faces. Children who had no home except the one humanity was trying to give them. These are the orphans of the Meridian colony. They had no parents. They had no families. They had only each other and the ship that was taking them to a new life on Mars. They had done nothing wrong. They threatened no one. They were children. Her voice shook slightly, but she controlled it. The Veilith patrol fleet destroyed their ship without warning. Commander Vexith ordered the attack as an example. He wanted to remind humanity of our place. He wanted to show the galaxy what happens when primitives forget their cage. She looked directly at the Veilith ambassador, who sat frozen in his seat. Your Dominion broadcast that attack as entertainment. Your people laughed. Your leaders called it regrettable but necessary. Regrettable. That is the word your High Sovereign used for the murder of 340 children. The chamber was completely silent. So we stopped being silent, Kira continued. We stopped accepting our place. We reminded the galaxy of something that the Dominion has forgotten. Something that every species here once knew before the Veilith crushed it out of you. She leaned forward. There are lines that should never be crossed. There are actions that should never be forgiven. And when someone crosses those lines, there should be consequences. Not because revenge feels good, but because without consequences, the powerful will do whatever they want. They will keep taking. They will keep killing. They will keep laughing. Kira straightened. Humanity is not asking for your help. We are not asking for your approval. We are not asking for anything. We are simply telling you what is going to happen. We are going to the Veilith homeworld. We are going to find every person responsible for the murder of our children. And we are going to bring them to justice. She looked around the chamber. When this is over, things will be different. The Dominion's power rests on fear. They control you because you are afraid. But I want you to watch what happens next. I want you to see that the Veilith can be beaten. I want you to remember that fear does not have to be forever. She picked up the holographic projector. These children deserved better. All children deserve better. Whatever species you are, whatever world you come from, you know this is true. And maybe, when this is over, we can build a galaxy where children do not die because someone wanted to make an example. She stepped down from the podium and walked out of the chamber. No one spoke for a very long time. The human fleet moved through space like a river of steel. They did not rush. They did not hide. They traveled in the open, broadcasting their position to anyone who wanted to watch. Other species watched. Some watched from conquered worlds, where Veilith governors ruled with cruelty. They saw the human ships pass by and wondered if freedom was possible. Some watched from ships of their own, merchants and traders who had accepted the Dominion's peace because there was no alternative. They saw the human fleet and felt something stir in their hearts. Some watched from the assembly, where ambassadors gathered around screens and debated what this all meant. They had lived under the Dominion's shadow for so long. They had forgotten what it felt like to hope, and the Veilith watched too. On worlds along the human fleet's path, Veilith garrisons prepared for battle. They expected destruction. They expected the burning and killing that came with every war the Dominion had ever fought. Instead, they received messages. We have no quarrel with civilians. Stay indoors. This will pass. The human fleet did not stop at these worlds. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply passed by. heading straight for the heart of the Dominion. The garrison stood down, confused and frightened. On one world, a young Valith officer asked his commander a question. If they are not here to conquer, what are they here for? The commander had no answer. High Sovereign Zelthar watched the human advance from his throne room. Every day, they grew closer. Every day, his fleet gathered to defend the homeworld. Every day, his advisors brought him reports of what the humans had done at Verath Prime. No atrocities, no massacres, no revenge. This made no sense to him. They are playing games, he told his council. They are trying to confuse us. When they arrive here, they will show their true nature. All species are the same. They want power. They want destruction. They want us to suffer. But doubt had begun to spread. Valith commanders who had fought the humans and survived told stories. Stories of human mercy. Stories of human discipline. Stories of enemies who defeated you completely and then treated you with respect. Some soldiers began to wonder if the Dominion stories about humanity were wrong. If the stories about all other species were wrong. Fear was cracking. On the awakening, Admiral Vasquez reviewed the final approach to Valithos. Her fleet had grown. Captured Valith ships, now crewed by humans, joined the formation. Volunteers from other species offered to help. She accepted some, politely refused others. This was humanity's fight. They would see it through themselves. Commander Wright stood beside her. The Dominion has gathered over 2,000 ships at the homeworld. Their entire remaining military. It will be the largest battle in galactic history. Vasquez nodded. It will also be the last. One way or another. She looked at the tactical display. So many ships. So many lives on both sides. We are not here to destroy them, she said quietly. We are not here to replace them. We are here for 340 children who deserve to grow up, who deserve to live, who were killed for no reason at all. She turned to face her crew. When we arrive at Valithos, we will offer them one chance to surrender, one chance to hand over those responsible. I hope they take it. I hope we can end this without more death. Her eyes hardened. But if they refuse, we will do what must be done. We will fight through every ship they have. We will reach their homeworld, and we will get justice for our children, no matter the cost. The crew stood at attention. Set course for Valithos, Vasquez ordered. Maximum speed. It is time to end this. The human fleet jumped to faster than light. Across the galaxy, 100 species watched and waited. The final battle was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Battle of Valithos lasted 3 hours. 2,000 Valith warships against 800 human vessels. The largest military force the Dominion had ever assembled. 10,000 years of conquest, all focused on stopping the human advance. It was not enough. Admiral Vasquez had offered surrender before the first shot was fired. She had promised that only those responsible for the attack on the hopeful Dawn would face justice. She had promised that civilians would be protected, that the Dominion's power structure would remain intact, that life would continue. High Sovereign Zelthar had refused. He believed numbers would win. He believed his fleet could crush the human ships through sheer force. He believed that the primitives had simply been lucky at Verath Prime. He was wrong. Human ships danced through the Valith formation like ghosts. Their weapons disabled vessels without destroying them. Their fighters targeted engines and weapons, leaving life support intact. Even in the heat of battle, they remembered why they were fighting. This was not about killing. This was about justice. Commander Yuki Tanaka led the assault on the orbital defense grid. Her team disabled the massive platforms one by one, using the same techniques that had worked at Verath Prime. Valith technology had not changed in thousands of years. They had never needed to improve it. No one had ever challenged them. Until now, the Valith fleet began to break. Ships surrendered. Commanders abandoned their posts. Soldiers who had fought for the Dominion their entire lives suddenly found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand, an enemy that defeated them completely but refused to kill them. 3 hours after the battle began, it was over. High Sovereign Zelthar sat alone in his throne room. His guards had fled. His advisors had abandoned him. Outside the palace, human soldiers moved through the streets. They did not loot. They did not burn. They simply secured the area and waited. The doors to the throne room opened. Admiral Helena Vasquez walked in. She was old. Her uniform was simple. She carried no visible weapons. 17 soldiers followed her. but they stayed by the door. She approached the throne alone. Zelthar looked at her with hatred. Have you come to gloat? Have you come to watch me die? Vasquez stopped 10 meters from the throne. I have come to offer you a choice. A choice? Zelthar laughed bitterly. What choice do I have? You have destroyed my fleet. You have taken my world. You have proven that everything I believed was wrong. Vasquez nodded. Yes, we have, but that is not why I am here. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small holographic projector. She placed it on the floor. 340 faces appeared in the air between them. Do you know who these children are? She asked. Zelthar stared at the faces. Some were smiling. Some were laughing. All of them were young. All of them were innocent. They are the orphans of the Meridian colony, Vasquez said. The children who died on the hopeful dawn. Children who had no home, no family, nothing except the promise of a new life that they would never reach. She let the images hang in the air. I am not here for revenge. I am not here to make you suffer. I am here because these children deserve justice. Not vengeance. Justice. Zelthar said nothing. You did not give the order to attack that ship, Vasquez continued. But you created the system that made it possible. You built an empire where killing innocents was considered entertainment. You taught your people that other species did not matter. She stepped closer. Commander Vexith gave the order. Fleet Admiral Sorath approved the mission. High Governor Kethan authorized the patrol route. These are the names we want. These are the people who will face trial. Zelthar looked up. Trial? Not execution. We are not like you, Vasquez said simply. We do not believe that death is justice. We believe that justice means understanding what you have done, facing those you have hurt, living with the weight of your actions. She deactivated the holographic projector. Surrender those responsible, and this war ends. Your dominion will remain. Your people will be safe. The only thing that will change is that humanity will be free, and the galaxy will know that there are consequences for killing children. Zelthar sat in silence for a long moment. Then he spoke the names. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. It was held on Mars, in a new building, constructed specifically for this purpose. Human judges presided. Human lawyers argued. But observers from every species were invited to watch. Commander Vexith stood before the court. Behind him sat Fleet Admiral Sorath, High Governor Kethan, and 17 other officials connected to the attack on the hopeful dawn. The evidence was overwhelming. Communications logs, orders, reports, the recording of the attack itself, where Vexith could be heard laughing as the hopeful dawn burned. The defendants were given lawyers. They were allowed to speak in their own defense. Every legal protection was observed. It did not help them. The verdict was guilty on all counts. The sentence surprised everyone. You will not be executed, the chief judge announced. Human law does not believe in death as punishment. Instead, you will spend the rest of your lives in service to children. The court displayed images of a new facility being built on Mars, the Meridian Memorial Orphanage, a home for children from every species who had lost their families. You will work there. You will care for children. You will feed them, teach them, protect them. You will learn, every day, what you destroyed. You will understand, through action, the weight of your crimes. Vexith stared in horror. He had expected death. Death was simple. Death was quick. This was something else entirely. You will live, the judge continued. You will live knowing what you did. And perhaps, over the years, you will become something better than what you were. The galaxy watched in amazement. This was not how conquerors behaved. This was not how wars ended. This was something new, something different, something human. Ambassador Kira Okonkwo gave the final address. Today, justice has been served. Not through violence, not through revenge, but through law and mercy, and the simple belief that every life has value. She looked into the cameras. Humanity has fought this war for 340 children. Children we never met. Children we would never know. But they were ours. They belonged to us, and we do not abandon our own. Her voice softened. The war is over. The covenant of eternal stillness is dissolved. Humanity will take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as equals. We ask nothing except what we have always asked, the right to live in peace, the right to protect our children, the right to be free. She paused. Let the galaxy remember this day. Not because humanity won a war, but because we chose how to win it. We chose justice over vengeance. We chose mercy over cruelty. We chose to be better than those who hurt us. She smiled slightly. That is what humans do. 50 years later, the Meridian Memorial stood on Mars. A garden of 340 trees, one for each child lost. Kira Okonkwo, now elderly, visited every year on the anniversary. She sat on a bench beneath the oldest tree, watching children play in the gardens. Children of many species. Human children, Valith children, others she could not name. A young Valith child approached her. She looked nervous, uncertain. "Excuse me," the child said. "Are you the ambassador? The one from the stories?" Kira smiled. "I am. And you must be from the orphanage." The child nodded. "I live here. The teachers told us about the war, about what happened, about the children who died." She hesitated. "Is it true? Your people broke the dominion for children you never met?" Kira looked at the child for a long moment. Then she reached out and took the little one's hand. "We broke the dominion for all children," she said gently. "Every species, every world, including you." The child stared at her with wide eyes. "Why?" Kira smiled. "Because that is what humans do." The child smiled back. Then she ran off to play with the others. Kira watched her go. Around her, the trees rustled in the Martian wind. 340 trees, 340 names, remembered forever. Above her, the stars shone bright. The galaxy was at peace. Not the false peace of cages and fear, but real peace. Built on justice, built on choice, built on the understanding that every life mattered. Humanity had been silent for 2,000 years. They would never be silent again. And across the galaxy, in homes and schools and orphanages, children of every species slept a little safer, because they knew humanity protected its children, always. The stars had always called to humanity. For 300 years, they answered that call. They built ships. They crossed the darkness between worlds. They made new homes on distant planets. By the year 2347, humans lived on 17 worlds scattered across a small corner of the galaxy. It was not much. The Valtharian Galactic Empire ruled over 40,000 star systems. They had conquered hundreds of species over thousands of years. Their fleets darkened the skies of countless worlds. Their emperor, Zalvarax the Eternal, had sat on his throne for 2,000 years. He had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. To the Empire, humanity was nothing. A young species, a small territory, a minor problem that would be solved soon enough. When the Empire sent a message to Earth requesting a diplomatic meeting, the leaders of the United Terran Federation felt hope. Perhaps they could negotiate. Perhaps they could find peace. Perhaps the Empire would leave them alone. They chose to send their best. They chose the 7 Valkyries. These 7 women were legends. They had protected humanity through its darkest hours. They had won impossible battles. They had saved millions of lives. Children on every human world knew their names. General Amara Okonkwo was their leader. She was tall and strong, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had commanded human forces for 40 years. Her soldiers loved her like a mother. Her enemies feared her like death itself. General Lin Mei Xing was called the Ghost of Proxima. She was small and quiet, but her mind was sharper than any blade. She could look at a battlefield and see victory where others saw only defeat. She had never lost a battle in her entire career. General Valentina Reyes commanded the 1st Armored Fleet. She was fierce and bold, with a laugh that could fill a room. Her ships had broken enemy lines 100 times. She led from the front, always. General Fatima al-Rashid was the architect. She had designed humanity's defensive networks. Every fortress, every space station, every weapons platform came from her brilliant mind. She was quiet and thoughtful, always planning 10 steps ahead. General Ingrid Volkov led the Iron Brigade, the most feared ground force in human space. She was hard as stone and twice as tough. Her soldiers would follow her into hell itself. And they had done so many times. General Yuki Tanaka had pioneered human psionic warfare. She had unlocked the hidden powers of the human mind. Her psychic soldiers could read thoughts, sense danger, and break enemy morale without firing a shot. She was gentle and kind, which made her abilities even more terrifying. General Adeze Nwosu was the youngest of the 7. She was only 32 years old, but her mind worked like no other. She saw patterns others missed. She found solutions others could not imagine. Military academies studied her battles like works of art. These 7 women boarded the diplomatic vessel Hope's Light and traveled to the heart of the empire. They brought a small escort of honor guards. They brought gifts and proposals for peace. They brought hope for humanity's future. The journey took 3 weeks. When they arrived at Dominara Prime, the capital world of the empire, they saw its terrible beauty. The planet was covered in black towers that reached toward the sky. Ships filled the space around it like insects around a hive. Everything was designed to show power. Everything was meant to make visitors feel small. The Valkyries were not impressed. They had faced worse. Emperor Zalvorax received them in the obsidian throne hall. The room was vast and dark, lit by floating crystals that cast strange shadows. The emperor sat on a throne carved from a single piece of black stone. He was reptilian, covered in scales the color of dried blood. His eyes were yellow and cold. Around him stood his advisors, his guards, and representatives from 100 conquered species. They all watched the humans with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. General Okonkwo stepped forward and bowed with respect but not submission. She spoke clearly and calmly. She proposed trade agreements. She offered cultural exchange. She suggested borders that both sides could respect. She asked for nothing but peace. The emperor listened in silence. When she finished, he let the quiet stretch for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a terrible sound, like rocks grinding together. The aliens around him joined in, a chorus of mockery that filled the vast hall. "Peace?" Zalvorax said, his voice echoing off the walls. "You speak of peace as if you have something to offer. You are insects. Your worlds are already ours. We simply have not bothered to take them yet." General Okonkwo did not flinch. "We ask only for the chance to exist alongside your empire. Humanity has no desire for war. What you desire does not matter," the emperor replied. "You will surrender your worlds. You will surrender your ships. You will surrender your people to serve the empire. This is not a negotiation. This is your instruction." The 7 generals looked at each other. In that moment, without speaking, they made their decision together. "No," General Okonkwo said simply. "Humanity will not surrender. We will defend our homes. We will protect our people. If you want war, we will give you war." The hall went silent. No one had spoken to the emperor like this in 1,000 years. Zalvorax leaned forward on his throne. His yellow eyes burned with ancient hatred. "You dare refuse? You, a species that has existed for a mere moment. You refuse the eternal empire?" "We do," General Meishing said quietly. "With respect," General Reyes added, though her voice held no respect at all. The emperor raised one clawed hand. Guards moved forward, surrounding the 7 women and their small escort. The humans did not resist. They had come under diplomatic protection. They believed in the laws of civilization. They were wrong to believe. "Let this be a message," Zalvorax announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "Let every species in my empire see what happens to those who refuse." What happened next was broadcast across 10,000 worlds. The empire wanted everyone to see. They wanted everyone to learn. The 7 Valkyries were executed in the obsidian throne hall. They died with dignity. They did not beg. They did not cry. General Okonkwo looked directly at the emperor as she fell, and she smiled. It was the smile of someone who knew something her killer did not. Their bodies were displayed on holographic screens across the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity had no hope. Resistance was death. Submission was the only path. The emperor returned to his throne, satisfied. His advisors congratulated him. His admirals began planning the simple conquest of human space. They expected it would take 6 weeks, perhaps 8. The humans would be too afraid to fight. They would surrender. They always did. In the days that followed, something strange happened. Human space went silent. No transmissions, no communications, no response at all. Admiral Kethraz, commander of the 3rd Subjugation Fleet, reported to the emperor that human civilians were weeping in the streets. Human soldiers were abandoning their posts. The psychological attack had worked perfectly. The empire celebrated. They toasted to their victory. They laughed at the foolish humans who had dared to say no. They did not understand what they had done. They did not know that humanity's silence was not despair. In those quiet days, something was building, something old and terrible, something that slept in the heart of every human being, waiting for the moment it was needed. The Empire had made a mistake. They had killed 7 women who were loved by billions. They had murdered heroes. They had created martyrs. And now, in the silence, humanity was not mourning. Humanity was preparing. The galaxy would soon learn what that meant. The news reached Earth in 7 hours. Every screen on the planet showed the same terrible images. The 7 women, the throne room, the Emperor's cold yellow eyes, the moment of death. For a long minute, the world stopped. People stood frozen in the streets. Workers paused at their machines. Children stopped playing. Everyone watched. Everyone saw. Then the screens went dark. Across all 17 human worlds, silence fell like a heavy blanket. Radio towers stopped transmitting. Ships cut their communications. Satellites went quiet. From the outside, it looked like humanity had simply given up. The Valtharian Empire watched with satisfaction. Their spies reported that humans were crying. Human soldiers were leaving their bases. Human leaders were hiding. Fear had taken hold, just as planned. Admiral Kethraz sent a message to Emperor Zalvorax. The humans are broken. We can begin conquest at your command. The Emperor told him to wait. Let the fear grow deeper. Let the humans suffer in their despair. Then the conquest would be even easier. They waited. They watched. They did not understand. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the true leaders of humanity gathered. The civilian government had stepped aside. There was no time for politics now, no time for debate, no time for anything but war. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood before them. He was 60 years old, with a face carved from stone and eyes that burned with cold fire. He had served under General Okonkwo for 30 years. She had been his mentor, his friend, his hero. Now, she was dead, and he would make the Empire pay for that. We have 3 days, he said to the assembled leaders. 3 days of silence. 3 days to transform everything we are into everything we need to be. The orders went out through secure channels, hidden cables, encrypted bursts, messengers on foot. The Empire's spies heard nothing because there was nothing to hear on the frequencies they monitored. Factories that made consumer goods shut down. When they opened again hours later, they produced weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels began building warships. Mining operations increased their output by 300%. Scientists abandoned their peaceful research and turned their minds to destruction. The military changed too. Retired veterans received calls in the middle of the night. Within hours, they were back in uniform. Training camps that had been half empty suddenly overflowed. Teenagers lied about their age to join. Grandparents demanded to serve. No one was turned away. But the most important changes happened in the shadows. Director Sana Okafor led Terran intelligence. She was a small woman with gray hair and a grandmother's smile. But behind that smile was a mind as sharp as a razor. For 20 years, she had been preparing for this moment. She had hoped it would never come. Now that it had, she was ready. She activated Protocol Erebus. Across 200 Valtharian worlds, sleeper agents awakened. These were humans who had lived among the Empire for years. Some worked as servants in noble houses. Some were traders in busy markets. Some had married aliens and raised families. All of them had waited for this call. They began to work. Computer viruses that had been dormant for decades came alive. They spread through imperial networks like disease. They copied information. They mapped weaknesses. They found the locations of fuel depots, fleet positions, and defensive systems. This information flowed back to Earth in tiny encrypted bursts. Every hour, Director Okafor knew more about the Empire than the Emperor himself. Sabotage began quietly. A power station failed on an industrial world. A shipyard's computers made small errors that would take months to discover. Supply records became confused. Communication relays developed mysterious problems. The Empire noticed none of it. They were too busy celebrating. On the morning of the 4th day, Admiral Chen stood before a camera. His uniform was crisp. His face was calm. Behind him hung 7 flags, one for each fallen general. His message was broadcast across every human world simultaneously. It was also sent into Imperial space, overriding their communication networks through backdoors that Director Okafor's people had created. Every screen in the Empire showed the same face, The same message. Admiral Chen spoke slowly and clearly. His voice was steady, without anger or fear. That made it more terrifying. People of the Valtharian Empire, he began. 4 days ago, you murdered 7 women. You killed them to send a message. You wanted us to be afraid. You wanted us to surrender. You wanted to show the galaxy that resistance is hopeless. He paused and looked directly into the camera. You failed. Humanity does not surrender. We do not kneel. We do not break. You have not taught us fear. You have taught us hate, and we are excellent students. He held up a data pad and read 7 names. As he spoke each one, the image behind him changed to show that general's face. Amara Okonkwo, Lin Meishing, Valentina Reyes, Fatima Al-Rashid, Ingrid Volkov, Yuki Tanaka, Adeze Nwosu. These women were our heroes. They were our mothers and sisters and daughters. They were the best of us, and you killed them like animals for entertainment. So hear me now, Emperor Zalvorax. Hear me, all of you who serve him. Hear me, every species that lives under his claw. We are coming. We will tear down your empire. We will break your fleets. We will burn your worlds. We will not stop until your throne lies in ashes and your name is forgotten by history. You have 40,000 star systems. We have 17. You have 80,000 warships. We have 200. By every measure, you should win. But you will not. Because you fight for conquest. We fight for our dead. This is not a war you can win. This is not a war you will survive. This is judgment. And it begins now. For Amara. For Meishing. For Valentina. For Fatima. For Ingrid. For Yuki. For Adeze. For every human who will never bow. We are coming. The transmission ended. Across the empire, there was confusion. This was not what was supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to surrender. They were supposed to be terrified. Instead, they had declared war against the largest military power in galactic history. Admiral Kethraz laughed when he heard the message. They are insane, he told his officers. They will be destroyed within weeks. Emperor Zalvorax did not laugh. He had seen something in Admiral Chen's eyes. Something he had not seen in a very long time. Something that made his ancient heart feel a strange, unfamiliar sensation. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was doubt. He pushed the feeling aside. The humans were nothing. They could not win. They would be crushed like every other species that had defied the Empire. But as he returned to his throne, the doubt remained. A small voice in the back of his mind whispered a warning. What if you made a mistake? He ignored it. He would learn, eventually, that he should have listened. Across human space, the silence ended. Engines roared to life. Weapons systems came online. Ships lifted off from 100 worlds. Humanity was no longer mourning. Humanity was marching to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Valtharian Empire had conquered 400 species over 10,000 years. Their military academies taught a simple truth. Numbers win wars. Bring enough ships, enough soldiers, enough guns, and victory is certain. By this logic, the war against humanity would be easy. The Empire had 80,000 warships. Humanity had perhaps 200. The math was simple. The outcome was obvious. The Empire's admirals gathered in their war rooms and made their plans. They divided human space into sectors. They assigned fleets to each sector. They scheduled the conquest like a routine exercise. 6 weeks to complete victory. 8 weeks at most. They did not understand human warfare. Admiral Chen had studied every war humanity had ever fought. He knew that humans had often faced superior enemies. They had won anyway. Not through strength, but through cleverness. Not through numbers, but through will. He created a strategy called the Doctrine of Seven. It had 7 parts, one named for each fallen general. Together, they would turn humanity's weakness into strength. Operation Okonkwo was about direct combat. Human ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but they were faster. Human targeting computers were more advanced. Human pilots trained harder and thought quicker. When human and Imperial ships met in battle, the humans struck with surgical precision, destroying enemy bridges and engines before the Imperials could react. A single human cruiser could disable 3 Imperial battleships before retreating into hyperspace. The first major battle happened at the Velis Nebula. Admiral Kethraz brought 200 ships to crush a human patrol of 20 vessels. He expected an easy victory. The human ships split into pairs. They wove through the nebula's gas clouds, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They never engaged directly. Instead, they struck at engines and weapon systems. They targeted officers through bridge windows with precision laser fire. Within 3 hours, 70 Imperial ships were crippled or destroyed. The humans lost 4. Admiral Kethraz retreated in confusion. This was not how war was supposed to work. Operation Mei Xing honored the ghost of Proxima. Small human ships, called wolf packs, hunted in the hyperspace lanes between Imperial worlds. They attacked supply convoys. They destroyed fuel transports. They vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Empire's logistics network began to bleed. Ships ran out of fuel far from home. Armies waited for supplies that never came. Factories sat idle because raw materials could not reach them. General Mei Xing had once said that an army's stomach was more important than its sword. Her students proved her right. Operation Reyes was named for the commander of the First Armored Fleet. Human strike forces jumped deep into Imperial space and attacked industrial worlds. They did not try to conquer. They only destroyed. On the planet Korthax Prime, a factory complex produced 70% of the Empire's advanced missiles. It had taken 3 centuries to build. Human Marines burned it to ash in 6 hours. On Velis Station, the Empire's largest shipyard, human bombers destroyed the construction bays and vanished before the defense fleet could respond. The Empire was losing its ability to build and repair. Every factory destroyed was a wound that would take decades to heal. Operation Al-Rashid turned human space into a fortress. General Al-Rashid had spent her career designing defensive systems. Now her students built upon her work. Every human world was surrounded by automated weapons platforms. Minefields filled the approaches. Hidden bases watched from asteroids and moons. When Imperial fleets entered human space, they found not open worlds but death traps. The Porcupine Network, as humans called it, made every attack cost more than it gained. An Imperial admiral named Zethkar led a fleet of 500 ships against the human colony on New Sydney. He lost 100 ships to mines before reaching orbit. Another 50 fell to weapons platforms. When he finally landed troops, they found the cities empty. The humans had evacuated. Booby traps killed thousands of Imperial soldiers. Zethkar claimed victory. But his fleet was crippled, his army was broken, and the world he had conquered was worthless rubble. Operation Volkov brought war to the ground. General Volkov had built the Iron Brigade, the most feared infantry in human space. Her soldiers wore powered armor that made them stronger and faster than any natural creature. They carried weapons that could punch through tank armor. They trained in conditions that would kill ordinary beings. When Imperial legions met human ground forces, they expected easy victory. They found nightmare. On the moon of Praxis 7, 10,000 Iron Brigade soldiers faced an Imperial army of 100,000. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, 8,000 humans still stood. The Imperial army was destroyed. The Empire had never lost a ground war. Now they were losing them everywhere. Operation Tanaka was subtle and terrifying. General Tanaka had unlocked human psionic abilities. Psychics could not win battles alone, but they could change them. Human telepaths infiltrated Imperial command structures. They could not read every thought, but they could sense intentions. They knew when admirals were planning attacks. They knew when governors were hiding information. They fed this knowledge back to Admiral Chen. Worse, they could project fear. Imperial officers began to have nightmares. They saw the faces of the 7 dead generals. They heard whispers in empty rooms. They grew paranoid and distrustful. An entire Imperial battle group surrendered without fighting after their admiral became convinced that his own officers were trying to kill him. He had no evidence. He simply felt it. He never knew that a human psychic on a small ship 3 light-years away had placed that fear in his mind. Operation Nuosu was the strangest of all. General Nuosu had been a genius of unconventional thinking. She did things that made no logical sense until suddenly they made perfect sense. Her students continued her work. They launched attacks that seemed random. They struck targets that appeared worthless. They retreated when they were winning and attacked when they were outnumbered. The Imperial admirals could not predict human behavior because human behavior followed no pattern they understood. One human captain flew her damaged cruiser directly at an Imperial dreadnought and ejected her crew at the last moment. The cruiser crashed into the dreadnought's bridge. Both ships were destroyed, but the dreadnought was the flagship of an entire fleet. With their admiral dead, the fleet fell into confusion. Other human ships swept in and destroyed half of them. The humans also fought with their spirits. They broadcast messages to Imperial soldiers. They sang songs about the 7 Valkyries. They told stories of human courage and sacrifice. They laughed in the face of death. Imperial soldiers began to wonder, what kind of enemy sings while dying? What kind of species fights with joy against impossible odds? Fear, the Empire's greatest weapon, was turning against them. 6 months after the war began, humanity had destroyed over 4,000 Imperial vessels. 12 major industrial centers lay in ruins. 4 of the Empire's subject species had begun their own rebellions. Inspired by human defiance, Emperor Zalvorax called his admirals to the Obsidian Throne Hall. The room where he had killed the 7 generals now felt different. The shadows seemed deeper. The silence felt heavier. How? The Emperor demanded. How are they doing this? His admirals had no answer. They had followed the rules of war. They had used their superior numbers. They had done everything correctly. But the humans did not follow rules. They wrote their own. Admiral Chen, watching from far away, permitted himself a small smile. The doctrine of 7 was working. The Empire was bleeding, but he knew the hardest part was still to come. The Empire was wounded, not defeated. Soon, they would bring their full power to bear, and humanity would face its greatest test. 1 year into the war, Emperor Zalvorax finally understood. The humans were not just an annoyance. They were a threat. He ordered full mobilization. 60,000 warships gathered from every corner of the Empire. Ground armies numbering in the billions assembled on staging worlds. Factory production tripled. Every resource the Empire possessed focused on one goal: the complete destruction of humanity. The largest armada in galactic history moved toward human space. It stretched across light years, a wave of steel and fire that seemed unstoppable. Admiral Chen watched the reports come in. His officers calculated the odds. With their current forces, humanity could not win a direct battle against such numbers. The math was simple and terrible. Chen nodded slowly. Then we will not fight a direct battle. He unveiled a new strategy. The burning path. Humanity would not defend every world. They would retreat, step by step, drawing the Empire deeper into human space. And every world they left behind would become a death trap. It was a terrible choice. It meant abandoning planets that humans had spent generations building. It meant leaving behind homes and memories and dreams. But Admiral Chen knew that saving humanity mattered more than saving any single world. The evacuation began. Civilian ships carried millions of people away from the outer colonies. They moved toward the core worlds, toward Earth, toward safety. Behind them, military engineers prepared their gifts for the Empire. The Imperial Armada reached the first human world, a colony called Harvest. They found it empty. The cities stood silent. The fields were abandoned. Victory seemed easy. Then the traps activated. Hidden bombs destroyed landing zones. Automated turrets emerged from buildings and opened fire. Poisoned water supplies killed thousands of soldiers. The ground itself was seeded with mines. Every step forward cost blood. Admiral Kethraz lost 50,000 soldiers taking Harvest. When he finally controlled the planet, he controlled nothing but ruins. He moved to the next world. The same thing happened, and the next, and the next. The burning path stretched across human space. Every colony was a wound. Every victory was a defeat. The Imperial Army bled from 1,000 cuts. Meanwhile, human wolf packs continued their work. Supply lines that had been damaged before now collapsed entirely. Ships ran out of fuel and drifted in the darkness. Soldiers ran out of food and starved on conquered worlds. The Empire's admirals begged for reinforcements. The Emperor sent them. But every ship sent to human space was a ship not guarding other territories. The Empire's grip on its subject species began to weaken. On the industrial world of Korathi Prime, something remarkable happened. The Korathi were an ancient species, conquered by the Empire 3,000 years ago. They had once ruled 100 worlds. Now they served as factory workers and miners, their spirits broken by generations of slavery. But they had been watching the war. They had seen the broadcasts of human defiance. They had heard the songs of the 7 Valkyries. They had watched a small species stand against the eternal empire and refuse to break. Something stirred in Korathi hearts. Something old. Something they had almost forgotten. Hope. Senior Senator Mira Vex of the Korathi secretly contacted Admiral Chen. It was incredibly dangerous. If the Empire discovered her betrayal, she and her entire species would be destroyed. But she took the risk anyway. "We remember freedom," she said in her coded message. "Your people have shown us that the Empire can be fought. We want to fight too." Admiral Chen's response was simple. "How many others feel as you do?" The answer stunned him. The Korathi had been quietly building a resistance for centuries, waiting for the right moment. They had weapons hidden in secret places. They had ships concealed in asteroid fields. They had soldiers trained in forgotten caves. And they were not alone. The Velix, a species of brilliant engineers, had watched their inventions stolen by the Empire for generations. They were ready to rebel. The Thranxi, once proud warriors, had been forced to serve as the Empire's shock troops. They remembered their honor. They wanted it back. The Mirani, the Kosteth, the Zilari species after species reached out to Admiral Chen. The Empire had ruled through fear, but humanity had shown that fear could be overcome. A secret alliance formed. They called themselves the Liberation Coalition. Humans, Korathi, Velix, Thranxi, and a dozen other species working together for one goal: the end of the Empire. The coalition began its work carefully. Sabotage increased across Imperial worlds. Factory accidents became more common. Ships developed mysterious problems. Information flowed to Admiral Chen from everywhere. But the war in human space continued. The Imperial Armada pushed forward, paying in blood for every light year. Admiral Chen retreated, always staying just ahead of the enemy, always leaving more traps behind. 1 year. Then 2. The Empire had expected a 6-week war. Now they were trapped in a nightmare with no end. Emperor Zalvorax grew desperate. He had ruled for 2,000 years. He had crushed countless rebellions, but he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans would not break. They kept fighting even when they lost. They kept smiling even when they died. And now, other species were beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, the Empire could fall. On the human core world of Novaterra, Admiral Chen met with leaders of the Liberation Coalition. The room was filled with beings from a dozen different species, but they all shared the same fire in their eyes. "The time is coming," Chen told them. "The Empire is weakened, their fleets are scattered, their armies are bleeding, their subject species are ready to rise." Senator Mira Vex leaned forward. "When do we strike?" "Soon," Chen replied. "Very soon. We have prepared for 3 years. The Empire has spent 3 years exhausting itself against our defenses. Now we take the fight to them." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Imperial forces. Blue dots marked coalition positions. "We will attack here, here, and here," he said, pointing to key systems. "We will cut off their reinforcements. We will isolate their fleets. And then we will march on Dominara Prime itself." The room fell silent. Dominara Prime, the heart of the Empire, the world where the 7 Valkyries had died. A Thranxi general spoke, his voice deep and rough. "If we fail, the Empire will destroy us all. If we do nothing, the Empire will destroy us anyway," Chen answered. "At least this way, we choose how we die. And if we succeed," he paused and looked around the room, "if we succeed, we will free a galaxy." The coalition leaders looked at each other. They saw doubt in some eyes, fear in others. But stronger than doubt, stronger than fear, was determination. One by one, they agreed. The Korathi, the Velix, the Thranxi, all of them. The rebellion was ready. Admiral Chen returned to his flagship. He looked out at the stars, thinking of the 7 women who had started this. They had died for peace. Now the galaxy would be reborn in war. He hoped they would approve. The order went out to every coalition ship, every hidden base, every sleeper cell across the Empire. Prepare for Operation Liberation. The final battle was coming. 3 years after the execution of the 7 Valkyries, the galaxy erupted in fire. The signal went out from Novaterra at midnight, local time. Every coalition ship received the same message. Operation Liberation has begun. Across the Empire, Rebellions exploded into violence. On Korathi Prime, workers who had been slaves for 3,000 years rose up and seized the factories. On Velik's shipyards, engineers turned their own warships against Imperial forces. The Thranxi legions, who had been forced to fight for the Empire, turned their weapons on their masters. In a single night, 200 worlds fell into chaos. But the main attack came at Dominara Prime itself. Admiral Chen led the United Liberation Fleet out of hyperspace. Human warships flew alongside Korathi dreadnoughts. Velik's carriers launched fighters beside Thranxi assault ships. A dozen species, once enemies, now fought as one. Emperor Zalvorax watched from the Obsidian Palace as the Liberation Fleet appeared in his sky. His defensive fleet outnumbered the attackers 3-1. By the old rules of war, he should win easily. But the old rules no longer applied. The Imperial fleet was tired. They had spent 3 years chasing humans through endless traps. Their ships needed repairs, their crews needed rest, their admirals had lost faith. The Liberation Fleet burned with purpose. They had come to end an empire. They had come to avenge the fallen. They had come to be free. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Amara Okonkwo. 7 ships led the attack, each named for a fallen general. Each carried a flag bearing that general's face. All ships, Chen commanded, attack. The battle for Dominara Prime was the largest in galactic history. 10,000 ships clashed in the darkness above the black towers of the capital. Energy weapons painted the sky with deadly light. Ships exploded like new stars being born and dying in moments. The Imperial fleet fought hard, but they fought without hope. Their commanders gave orders, but their hearts were not in them. One by one, Imperial ships surrendered or fled. Admiral Kethraz, who had laughed at humanity's declaration of war, tried to retreat. A wolf pack of human ships caught his flagship. They did not destroy it. They boarded it. Human marines in powered armor, their suits painted with the names of the 7 Valkyries, stormed through the corridors. They found Kethraz hiding in his quarters. The marine captain removed her helmet. She was young, with dark skin and fierce eyes. "I am Captain Zara Okonkwo," she said, "daughter of General Amara Okonkwo. You watched my mother die." Kethraz trembled. "I was only following orders." "So was she," Zara replied. "She was ordered to make peace. You were ordered to commit murder. We have different standards." She took him prisoner. He would face justice, not revenge. Her mother would have wanted it that way. As the space battle raged, transports descended toward the surface. Human marines, Thranxi warriors, and Korathi soldiers landed on Dominara Prime. The black towers that had seemed so powerful now looked small against the fire falling from the sky. The assault on the Obsidian Palace was fierce. Imperial guards fought to the last. They had served the Emperor for generations. They did not know how to surrender. But the Liberation forces pushed forward. Room by room, corridor by corridor, step by bloody step. Admiral Chen landed with the second wave. He was too old to lead a charge, but he would not stay on his ship. He had to be there at the end. He walked through halls filled with smoke and fire. Bodies lay everywhere, Imperial guards, Liberation soldiers, and civilians caught in the crossfire. War was never clean. War was never kind. Finally, he reached the throne room. The great doors had been blasted open. Inside, the obsidian throne hall was filled with rubble and dust. The floating crystals that once lit the room had shattered. Shadows covered everything. On the black throne, Emperor Zalvorax sat waiting. He looked ancient now. His scales were dull. His yellow eyes were tired. 2,000 years of power had come to this moment. Around him lay the bodies of his personal guards. They had fought to the end. They had died for nothing. Admiral Chen walked toward the throne, his boots crunching on broken stone. Liberation soldiers spread through the room, their weapons ready. "It is over," Chen said simply. The Emperor laughed. It was a weak sound. Nothing like the terrible roar that had filled this room 3 years ago. "You should have surrendered when you had the chance," Zalvorax said. "Now your species will be exterminated. Every human world will burn. Every—" "No," Chen interrupted. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You still do not understand." He stepped aside. 7 figures walked forward from the ranks of Liberation soldiers. They were young, all of them. They wore the uniforms of generals, new stars shining on their collars. Chen spoke each name. "General Zara Okonkwo." daughter of Amara, General Wei Mei Xing, niece of Lin, General Isabella Reyes, daughter of Valentina, General Sarah al-Rashid, protégé of Fatima, General Katya Volkov, granddaughter of Ingrid, General Yuki Tanaka II, daughter of Yuki, General Chidinma Nuosu, sister of Adeze. The 7 young women stood before the throne, faces hard with purpose. You killed 7 women, Chen continued. You thought you were destroying our leadership. You thought you were breaking our spirit. Instead, you created a legend that will never die. Every human who fought carries their memory. Every free alien in this galaxy owes them a debt. The 7 Valkyries are not gone. They have multiplied. They are in every soldier who refused to kneel. They are in every ship that burned your fleets. They are in every world that rose against you. You did not end their legacy. You made it immortal. The Emperor tried to rise. His old legs would not support him. He fell back onto his throne, helpless. General Zara Okonkwo stepped forward. In her hands, she held a data tablet containing the judgment of the Liberation Coalition. Emperor Zalvorax, the Eternal, she announced, her voice echoing through the ruined hall. You are charged with the murder of diplomatic envoys. You are charged with genocide against countless species. You are charged with 2,000 years of tyranny, slavery, and cruelty beyond measure. The Liberation Coalition has considered your crimes. The verdict is unanimous. You are sentenced to death. The Emperor's yellow eyes went wide. You cannot kill me. I am eternal. I have ruled for 2,000 years. You are finished, Zara said simply. She raised her sidearm. The weapon that ended the Emperor's life was simple and quick. There was no ceremony, no spectacle, just justice. After far too long, the body of Zalvorax slumped on the obsidian throne. The empire that had lasted 10,000 years died with him. Across the galaxy, word spread. The Emperor is dead. The empire has fallen. We are free. On 100 worlds, beings who had been slaves celebrated in the streets. On 1,000 worlds, those who had lived in fear looked up at the sky and breathed the air of freedom for the first time. The Valtharian Empire was dissolved. In its place, the Liberation Coalition became the Galactic Commonwealth, a union of free species, each governing their own worlds, all working together for peace. Humanity, the small species that had once controlled only 17 worlds, became a founding member. Their courage had lit a fire that burned away an empire. On Earth, in the city of Geneva, a memorial was built. 7 pillars of crystal stood in a plaza overlooking a lake. Each pillar contained a holographic image of a Valkyrie, their faces forever young, forever strong. People came from across the galaxy to see it. Humans and aliens alike stood before those pillars and remembered what 7 women had started. Admiral Chen retired after the war. He spent his final years tending a garden near the memorial, watching visitors come and go. Sometimes he would see children playing near the pillars, children who would grow up in a free galaxy because 7 women had refused to kneel. On quiet nights, he would look up at the stars and remember General Okonkwo's smile, General Mei Xing's quiet wisdom, General Reyes's fierce laughter, all of them, gone but never forgotten. The galaxy had named a constellation after them, 7 bright stars, visible from 1,000 worlds. Travelers used them to navigate the darkness between stars. The 7 stars, a reminder of sacrifice, a symbol of hope, a promise that some victories are forever. On one clear evening, as Admiral Chen sat in his garden watching the stars appear, a young girl wandered over from the memorial. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely. "Are you the Admiral Chen? The one from the war?" Chen smiled. "I am." The girl sat down beside him. "I'm doing a school project about the 7 Valkyries. Can you tell me about them?" "I can," Chen said, "but it's a long story." "That's okay," the girl replied. "I like long stories." Chen looked up at the 7 stars, bright and eternal in the night sky. "It began," he said softly, "with 7 women who believed that some things are worth dying for, and in their death, they taught the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." He talked until the stars wheeled overhead and the girl's eyes grew heavy with sleep. The story would be told again and again, to new generations, on new worlds, in languages not yet spoken, because some stories do not end. They become part of the stars themselves. The Zorvani Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled over 1,000 worlds. Their ships darkened the skies of countless planets. Their armies had crushed every species that dared to resist. In all that time, no one had ever defeated them. No one had even come close. So, when their scout ships found a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, they thought nothing of it. The planet was called Earth by its people. The Zorvani called it Resource World 7291. The scouts watched the humans for several months. They saw cities and farms. They saw cars and planes. They saw people going to work, raising families, and living ordinary lives. The scouts also saw something else. They saw wars. Humans fought each other constantly. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities. They argued about borders and resources and ideas. The Zorvani scout commander sent his report to the Empire. "These creatures are violent and primitive," he wrote. "They waste their energy fighting among themselves. They have not yet discovered faster than light travel. They pose no threat." Recommendation: Conquest and labor extraction. The report traveled across the stars to Nexara Prime, the throne world of the Zorvani Empire. There, the High Council read it and laughed. Another weak species to add to their collection. Another world to strip of resources. Another population to put to work in their mines and factories. The Primarch of the Zorvani Empire was a creature named Zethros. He stood 9 feet tall. His skin was like gray stone. His eyes glowed with a dim red light. He had ruled the empire for 300 years, and in that time, he had never known failure. He looked at the report about Earth and made his decision in seconds. "Send a delegation," he ordered. "Inform these humans of their new status. They will serve the Empire, or they will be destroyed." 3 massive Zorvani ships appeared in Earth's sky on a spring morning. They blocked out the sun over major cities. Panic spread across the world. Governments mobilized their militaries. People ran through the streets, screaming and crying. But the Zorvani did not attack. Instead, they sent a message. "People of Earth," the message said, "you have been chosen to serve the Zorvani Empire. Surrender your planet, surrender your resources, surrender yourselves. You have 60 cycles to comply. Resistance will result in extinction." The nations of Earth did something they had never done before. They stopped fighting each other. Within days, world leaders gathered in Geneva. Old enemies sat at the same table. They argued. But they also listened. And in the end, they made a choice. They would not surrender. Instead, they would send their own delegation to negotiate. A man named Kale Reyes was chosen to speak for all of humanity. He was a diplomat, a soldier, and a father of 3. He was calm under pressure. He believed in peace, but he also understood that some enemies could not be reasoned with. Reyes and his team boarded a Zorvani shuttle. The aliens looked at the humans like farmers look at cattle. They did not speak to them. They did not offer them food or water. They simply transported them across the stars to Nexara Prime. The throne world of the Zorvani Empire was a massive planet covered in metal and stone. Cities stretched from horizon to horizon. Ships filled the sky in endless streams. The Zorvani had built their civilization on the backs of conquered species, and their wealth was beyond imagination. Reyes was brought before the High Council. The chamber was enormous. Thousands of Zorvani officials sat in rising rows of seats, looking down at the small human standing in the center. Behind Reyes, a holographic image of Earth rotated slowly. The Primarch sat on a throne of black metal. He looked at Reyes with something like amusement. This tiny creature had come to negotiate? How entertaining. "Speak, human," the Primarch said. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Reyes stood straight. He showed no fear. "I am Ambassador Kale Reyes. I speak for the people of Earth. We have come to discuss terms." The council laughed. The sound filled the chamber like rolling stones. "Terms?" the Primarch said. "You do not make terms. You have nothing we want. You have nothing we need. You are here to listen, not to speak." Reyes did not back down. "Then let me be clear about something. Earth is not your resource. Humans are not your slaves. We offer friendship and trade. We offer cultural exchange and scientific cooperation. But we will not offer submission." The laughter stopped. The Primarch leaned forward on his throne. His red eyes burned brighter. "You are either very brave or very stupid," he said. "Do you know how many species have stood where you stand? Do you know how many have spoken as you speak? All of them are dust now. Their worlds are mines. Their people are laborers. This is the way of things. This is the natural order. The natural order can change, Reyes replied. The Primarch smiled. It was not a kind smile. You misunderstand your position, little species. You do not negotiate. You comply. This is not a discussion. This is a notification. Reyes felt his heart pounding in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. And if we refuse, then your cities will burn. Your oceans will boil. Your children will work in our factories until they die. And in 1,000 years, no one will remember that Earth ever existed. Silence fell over the chamber. Every eye was on Reyes. He thought of his wife. He thought of his children. He thought of every human being on Earth, going about their lives, hoping for the best. Then he thought of something else. He thought of human history. He thought of all the times humanity had faced impossible odds. He thought of all the wars they had survived, all the disasters they had overcome, all the enemies they had defeated. Humans were not strangers to struggle. They had been fighting for survival since the first man picked up a stone. They had conquered their planet. They had split the atom. They had reached for the stars, and they had done it all while fighting each other. What could they do if they fought together? Reyes looked up at the Primarch. Then let me give you a warning, he said. Leave our system. Do not return. Do not send your ships. Do not send your soldiers. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. This is not a request. It is a warning. The chamber exploded with laughter. The Primarch laughed loudest of all. A human, warning the Zorvani Empire? It was the funniest thing they had ever heard. 60 cycles, the Primarch said when the laughter died. 60 cycles to come to your senses. After that, we will come for you. And we will not be gentle. Reyes was escorted out of the chamber. The Zorvani did not take him seriously. Why would they? They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had crushed 1,000 species. Humans were just another name on a very long list. But as Reyes boarded the shuttle back to Earth, he allowed himself a small smile. The Zorvani saw humans as weak and divided. They saw a species that wasted its energy on internal conflict. They saw easy prey. They did not see the truth. Humans had been fighting for thousands of years. They had perfected the art of war. They knew strategy and tactics. They knew how to build weapons and how to use them. They knew how to sacrifice and how to endure. The Zorvani had never faced an enemy like humanity. They had never faced a species that had been hardened by constant conflict. They had never faced a people who would rather die than kneel. Reyes returned to Earth and delivered his report. The nations of the world listened in silence. Then they began to prepare. 60 cycles was not a lot of time, but it would be enough. Earth was going to war. The 60 cycles began, and Earth transformed. Every factory on the planet switched to war production. Car factories started making tanks. Electronics companies started making weapons. Shipyards that once built cargo vessels now built warships. The entire industrial power of humanity focused on a single goal: survival. World leaders created the United Terran Defense Coalition. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth worked together. Old enemies shared secrets. Former rivals combined their armies. Scientists from different countries worked side by side in underground laboratories. The divisions that had defined human history melted away in the face of extinction. Admiral Chen Wei was placed in command of all military forces. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in 3 wars and had never lost a battle. Now she faced the greatest challenge of her life. We cannot beat them in a straight fight, she told her commanders during their first meeting. Their ships are bigger. Their weapons are stronger. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If we meet them in open battle, we will lose. The commanders looked at each other nervously. If they could not win in battle, what hope did they have? Admiral Chen smiled. So we will not fight them in open battle. We will fight them our way. We will use tricks and traps. We will hide our strength and show our weakness. We will make them think they have already won. And then, when they are confident and careless, we will strike. The plan was called Operation Silent Thunder. It had 3 parts. The first part was deception. Earth's orbital stations went dark. Ships were hidden on the far side of the moon. Weapons platforms were disguised as asteroids. To any observer, Earth looked defenseless. The humans appeared to have given up. The second part was preparation. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, Massive bunkers were built. Factories produced weapons day and night. New ships were constructed in secret locations. The asteroid belt became a hidden fortress, filled with weapons that could strike without warning. The third part was infiltration. During Ambassador Reyes's visit to Nexara Prime, a Zorvani shuttle had brought him to the throne world. What the Zorvani did not know was that Reyes had carried something with him. Hidden in his clothes were millions of microscopic machines. These tiny drones were smaller than dust particles. They could not be seen or detected. When Reyes returned to Earth, he had left most of the drones behind. They spread through the Zorvani shuttle. They crawled into the computers. They buried themselves in the power systems. When the shuttle returned to the Zorvani fleet, the drones went with it, and from there, they spread to every ship in the armada. The drones did nothing. They waited. They watched. They recorded everything and sent the information back to Earth. The humans learned how Zorvani ships worked. They learned their weaknesses. They learned how to kill them. 50 cycles passed. On Nexara Prime, the Primarch grew impatient. He had expected the humans to surrender quickly. Instead, they had gone silent. No messages. No pleas for mercy. Nothing. Perhaps they are building weapons, one of his advisors suggested. The Primarch laughed. With what? They have no resources. They have no technology. They are primitive creatures living on a single world. What could they possibly build that would threaten us? Still, the advisor said carefully, perhaps we should send scouts, just to be safe. The Primarch waved his hand dismissively. Fine. Send scouts. Let them see how helpless these humans are. It will make our victory even sweeter. 3 scout ships were sent to the Sol system. They arrived and scanned Earth from a distance. They saw dark orbital stations. They saw empty space. They saw a planet that seemed to have accepted its fate. The humans have surrendered, the scout commander reported. Their defenses are down. Their population appears to be in despair. They are ready for conquest. The report pleased the Primarch greatly. He ordered the invasion fleet to prepare. 300 capital ships, 50,000 soldiers, enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. It was excessive, but the Primarch wanted to make an example of Earth. He wanted the galaxy to see what happened to species that dared to resist. On Earth, Admiral Chen received word that the fleet was coming. She gathered her commanders in the main bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens showed the approaching enemy ships, 300 points of light, moving slowly toward humanity's home. They are coming, Chen said. 300 ships. This is more than we expected. Can we still win? General Morrison asked. He commanded the ground forces and was known for his blunt honesty. Chen nodded. We can win. But it will not be easy. Many people will die. We must accept this. We must prepare for it. And we must make sure their deaths mean something. The commanders went to their posts. Across Earth, people said goodbye to their families. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots climbed into their ships. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone was afraid. But no one ran. In a small town in Kansas, a father hugged his daughter before leaving for his post. She was only 8 years old. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she knew her father might not come back. Why do you have to go? She asked. The father knelt down and looked into her eyes. Because if I don't, they will take everything from us. Our home, our freedom, our future. I am going so that you can have a life worth living. Will you come back? The father smiled, but his eyes were wet. I will try. I promise I will try. Similar scenes played out across the world. Humanity prepared for the fight of its life. Not with despair, but with determination. Not with fear, but with fury. The Zorvani had threatened their children. They had threatened their world. They had threatened their very existence. And humans did not take such threats lightly. The Zorvani fleet crossed the orbit of Pluto, then Neptune, then Uranus. They moved slowly, confidently. They expected no resistance. They broadcast messages demanding immediate surrender. The messages went unanswered. Fleet Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was a veteran of 50 campaigns. He had conquered dozens of worlds. This mission was beneath him, really. Crushing a primitive species was hardly worth his time, but the Primarch had insisted, and Vorath had obeyed. Any response from the humans? He asked. None, Commander. His communications officer reported. Their orbital stations are still dark. No ship movements detected. No weapon signatures. Vorath grunted. They are frozen with fear. Good. This will be over quickly. The fleet passed Saturn, then Jupiter. They were now entering the inner solar system. Earth grew larger on their screens, blue and green and beautiful. Soon it would belong to the Empire. Commander, the tactical officer said suddenly, I am detecting some activity on Earth's moon. Vorath raised an eyebrow. What kind of activity? I am not sure. The readings are strange. It looks like a mining colony of some kind. Small, poorly defended. A cruel smile crossed Vorath's face. Perfect. We will destroy it. A demonstration of our power. Let the humans see what awaits them if they resist. But, Commander, the tactical officer said, they have not resisted. Perhaps we should do it. Vorath commanded. I want them to watch. I want them to understand. The flagship's main cannon powered up. A beam of pure energy shot across space. It struck the lunar colony with devastating force. Habitation domes shattered. Atmosphere vented into the void. 20,000 humans died in seconds. On Earth, people watched in horror. Families screamed as they saw the destruction. The images were broadcast everywhere. There was no escaping what had happened. In the command bunker, Admiral Chen watched the footage in silence. Her hands were steady, but her eyes burned with cold anger. The officers around her waited for her orders. They killed 20,000 people, General Morrison said quietly. 20,000 civilians. For no reason. Chen nodded slowly. Yes, they did. What do we do now? Admiral Chen turned to face her commanders. Her voice was calm and hard. They wanted our answer. Now they will have it. All units, prepare to execute Operation Silent Thunder. It is time to show these creatures what humanity is capable of. The order went out across the solar system. Hidden weapons powered up. Secret ships launched from concealed bases. The infiltration drones inside the Zorvani vessels received their activation signal. The trap was set, and the prey was walking right into it. Commander Vorath was feeling pleased with himself. The destruction of the lunar colony had been beautiful to watch. The way the domes had cracked, the way the bodies had floated into space. It reminded him why he loved his job. Continue toward Earth, he ordered. Maximum speed. I want to be in orbit within 6 hours. The Zorvani fleet accelerated. 300 ships moved through space like a swarm of metal insects. Each one was massive. Each one carried enough weapons to level a continent. Together, they were unstoppable, or so they believed. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, alarms suddenly began to scream. Red lights flashed across every console. Officers shouted in confusion. What is happening? Vorath demanded. I do not know, Commander. The engineering officer cried. Our systems are failing. Power is dropping across the ship. Navigation is offline. Weapons are offline. Everything is offline. Vorath grabbed the officer by the throat. Fix it. I cannot. There is something in our systems. Some kind of infection. It is spreading through everything. Similar scenes played out across the entire fleet. Every Zorvani ship went dark at the same moment. Engines died. Lights flickered and failed. Weapon systems shut down. Communication equipment stopped working. 300 warships became 300 floating tombs. The infiltration drones had done their work. For months, they had been hiding inside the Zorvani ships. They had mapped every system. They had found every weakness. And when they received the signal from Earth, they attacked. They ate through power cables. They corrupted computer systems. They destroyed navigation equipment from the inside. In minutes, the most powerful fleet in the galaxy was completely helpless. Commander Vorath screamed orders that no one could follow. His ship drifted through space, dead and silent. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the bridge. The proud warriors of the Zorvani Empire were now prisoners on their own vessels. Then the humans came. From behind the moon, ships emerged. From inside asteroids, ships emerged. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, ships emerged. The Terran fleet was smaller than the Zorvani armada. The ships were uglier. They had sharp angles and brutal designs. They looked like weapons, not works of art, but they worked. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the TNS Defiance. Through the view screen, she could see the helpless Zorvani fleet. Her tactical officer was counting targets. 300 enemy vessels confirmed, Admiral. All systems appear to be down. They are not responding to our approach. Chen nodded. Open a channel. All frequencies. The communication officer made the connection. Chen's voice was broadcast to every Zorvani ship. Zorvani fleet. This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Terran Defense Coalition. Your ships are disabled. Your weapons are offline. You cannot fight. You cannot run. You are completely at our mercy. She paused, letting the words sink in. 20,000 of our people died on that lunar colony. Children, families, innocent people. You killed them for no reason. You killed them because you could, because you thought we were weak, because you thought we would not fight back. Her voice grew harder. You were wrong. The order was given. The Terran fleet opened fire. Human weapons were different from Zorvani weapons. They were not elegant beams of energy. They were brutal and simple. Mass drivers launched tungsten rods at incredible speeds. These rods hit with the force of nuclear explosions. They punched through Zorvani armor like paper. Fusion torpedoes followed. These weapons were designed to bypass shields. They detonated inside enemy ships, turning their hulls into burning coffins. The Zorvani had never seen anything like them. They had never needed to. The Battle of Sol was not really a battle. It was an execution. Zorvani ships exploded one after another. Their crews had no way to fight back. Some tried to restart their systems. A few managed to get partial power. But it was not enough. The humans were everywhere, firing from all directions. On the Eternal Dominion, Commander Voreth watched his fleet die. Explosions lit up the view screen. Ships he had commanded for decades were torn apart in seconds. Warriors he had known for centuries burned in the void. This cannot be happening, he whispered. This is impossible. But it was happening. And it was very possible. The battle lasted 9 hours. Most of that time was spent hunting down ships that had drifted away from the main fleet. The actual fighting took only minutes. Human weapons were simply too effective. Human tactics were simply too good. When it was over, 273 Zorvani capital ships were destroyed. 27 were captured. The crews that survived were taken prisoner. They were treated well. Humans were not cruel, but they were thorough. Commander Voreth was found in an escape pod. He had abandoned his ship when it became clear that all was lost. The proud warrior who had destroyed the lunar colony was now curled up in a ball, weeping like a child. Please, he begged when human soldiers opened his pod. Please do not kill me. I was following orders. I was only following orders. The soldiers looked at him with disgust. One of them, a young woman named Private Torres, shook her head. You killed 20,000 people, she said, including my brother. He worked on that colony. He was 22 years old. Voreth cringed. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Torres wanted to hurt him. She wanted to make him feel the pain her family was feeling. But she did not. She was a soldier, not a murderer. There was a difference. Take him to the prison ship, she said. He will stand trial for what he did. Voreth was dragged away. He would spend the rest of his life in a cell, thinking about what he had done. Some said it was too kind. Others said it was worse than death. News of the victory spread across Earth. People poured into the streets. They cheered and cried and hugged strangers. The fear that had gripped the planet for 60 cycles finally broke. They had done it. They had beaten the invaders. Admiral Chen addressed the planet from the bridge of the Defiance. Her face was tired but determined. People of Earth, she said. Today we won a great victory. We showed the Zorvani Empire that humanity will not bow. We showed them that we will fight for our freedom. We showed them that underestimating us was the biggest mistake they ever made. She paused. But this is not over. The Empire will not accept this defeat. They will send more ships, more soldiers. They will try to crush us again. We must be ready. We must be stronger. We must take the fight to them before they can recover. In the command bunker, General Morrison watched the Admiral's speech. He turned to his aides. She is right. This was just the first battle. The war is only beginning. On Nexara Prime, the Primarch received word of the defeat. At first, he did not believe it. 300 ships, destroyed by primitives? It was impossible. It had to be a mistake, but it was not a mistake. The reports kept coming. Ships destroyed, crews captured, Commander Voreth taken prisoner. The fleet was gone. All of it. The Primarch's red eyes burned with fury. He smashed his throne with his fist, cracking the ancient metal. Assemble every ship in the Empire. He commanded. Every soldier. Every weapon. I want 5,000 ships. I want to burn that planet to ash. I want to kill every single human in the galaxy. I want their name erased from history. His advisors bowed and hurried to obey. The Empire was coming. And this time, they would not underestimate humanity. But the humans had plans of their own. Admiral Chen was already preparing the next phase of the war. The victory at Seoul had bought them time. Now they needed to use it. We cannot wait for them to come to us, she told her commanders. We must strike first. We must hit them where they are weak. We must make them afraid. The commanders nodded. They had tasted victory. They wanted more. Earth had struck back. But this was only the beginning. Word of the Battle of Seoul spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On 1,000 conquered worlds, slaves whispered to each other in the darkness. A species called humans had destroyed a Zorvani fleet. 300 ships, gone, just like that. It seemed impossible. It seemed like a dream. But the reports kept coming, and the dream became real. For the first time in 12,000 years, hope was alive in the galaxy. The Cathari were the first to act. They were an insectoid species, small and clever, with 6 legs and brilliant minds. The Zorvani had conquered them 5,000 years ago. Since then, they had been forced to work in factories, building ships and weapons for their masters. They hated the Empire, but they had never dared to resist. Until now, on the factory world of Keth Prime, workers began to sabotage production. Weapons were built with hidden flaws. Ships were constructed with weak points in their armor. Computer systems were infected with viruses. The Cathari did this quietly, carefully, making sure the Zorvani never suspected. If the humans can fight, their leader said, then so can we. We may not have weapons, but we have our minds. We will make sure the Empire's tools turn against them. The Luminari joined next. They were beings of pure light, beautiful and peaceful. They had surrendered to the Empire without fighting, hoping to preserve their culture. The Zorvani had used them as servants and entertainers, mocking their gentle nature. But the Luminari had eyes everywhere. They served in the homes of Zorvani commanders. They cleaned the halls of military bases. They heard secrets that were meant to be kept hidden. Now they shared those secrets with humanity. Messages began arriving on Earth. Information about fleet movements, details about weapons research, maps of supply lines and defensive positions. The intelligence was perfect. It was exactly what Admiral Chen needed. The Luminari are risking everything to help us, she told her officers. We must not waste their sacrifice. The Vorax were the last to join, but they were the most important. They were a warrior species, massive and fierce, with thick scales and powerful muscles. The Zorvani had conquered them through trickery, not strength. They had poisoned Vorax leaders during peace talks. It was a dishonor that the Vorax had never forgotten. For centuries, the Vorax had waited for a chance to take revenge. Now that chance had come. On their prison world, Vorax warriors broke free from their chains. They killed their guards with their bare hands. They seized weapons and ships. They sent a message to Earth. Humans, the message said. We have heard of your victory. We offer our strength. We offer our blood. Together, we will destroy the Empire. Admiral Chen accepted their offer without hesitation. The Terran Coalition became the Terran Alliance. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. The war that followed was brutal and fast. Human ships struck Zorvani supply lines without warning. They appeared from nowhere, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Zorvani called it cowardly. The humans called it smart. We cannot beat them in a fair fight, Admiral Chen reminded her officers. So we will not fight fair. We will hit them where they are weak. We will run when they are strong. We will make them chase us across the galaxy. And while they chase us, their empire will burn. It worked. Zorvani commanders did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to stand still. They were used to crushing weaker species with overwhelming force. They were not prepared for an enemy that hit and ran, that struck from the shadows, that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Factories stopped producing weapons because Cathari sabotage ruined their machines. Fleets flew into ambushes because Luminari spies revealed their plans. Supply ships were destroyed before they could deliver food and fuel. Zorvani soldiers went hungry. Zorvani ships ran out of power. The Empire was bleeding. On Nexara Prime, The Primarch grew more desperate with each passing day. The great fleet he had assembled was being picked apart piece by piece. His commanders kept asking for more ships, more soldiers, more resources. But there was nothing left to give. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are insects. They are nothing." His chief scientist, a old Zorvani named Kress, shook his head sadly. "We underestimated them, Primarch. We saw a species that fought among themselves and assumed they were weak. We were wrong." "Explain," the Primarch commanded. Kress took a deep breath. "The humans have been at war since their species began. They fight over land. They fight over resources. They fight over ideas. This constant conflict has made them very, very good at fighting. They have perfected the art of war in ways we cannot imagine. We have been at war for 12,000 years, the Primarch said. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. Yes, Kress agreed. But our wars have been easy. We have always been stronger than our enemies. We have never had to struggle. We have never had to adapt. The humans have done nothing but struggle and adapt. They are survivors. And now they are using everything they have learned against us." The Primarch did not want to hear this. He wanted solutions, not explanations. He executed Kress on the spot. But killing the messenger did not change the message. The Empire was falling apart. More conquered species began to rebel. Some fought openly, seizing weapons and attacking Zorvani forces. Others fought quietly, destroying equipment and spreading chaos. The humans welcomed them all. The alliance grew larger every day. Ambassador Kale Reyes traveled to rebel worlds, offering friendship and support. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was a symbol. Everywhere he went, people cheered. "We did not start this war," he told crowds of freed slaves, "but we will finish it. The Zorvani Empire is built on fear and cruelty. It cannot stand against those who fight for freedom. It cannot defeat those who have nothing left to lose." The crowds roared their approval. They had been afraid for so long. Now they were angry. Now they were ready to fight. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen planned the final phase of the war. The Alliance fleet had grown to 10,000 ships. It was still smaller than what the Empire could gather, but it was stronger than anyone had expected. "The Primarch will make his last stand on Nexera Prime," she told her commanders. "He has pulled all remaining forces back to defend the throne world. If we can take Nexera Prime, the war is over." "Can we take it?" General Morrison asked. Chen studied the maps and reports. The defenses around Nexera Prime were formidable. The Empire had spent 12,000 years building them. Any attack would be costly. "We can take it," she said finally. "But it will not be easy. Many will die. We must decide if we are willing to pay that price." The commanders looked at each other. They thought about the lunar colony. They thought about the slaves on 1,000 worlds. They thought about all the suffering the Empire had caused. "We are willing," Morrison said. The others nodded in agreement. Admiral Chen gave the order. The Alliance fleet began to assemble. Ships from Earth, from Keth Prime, from the Luminari homeworld, from the Vorax prison planet. They came together in the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. The final battle was coming, and the humans would lead the charge. On Nexera Prime, the Primarch watched the Alliance fleet approaching. His red eyes burned with hatred and fear. He had never known fear before. He did not like it. "Let them come," he said. "Let them die on our walls. We will crush them. We will destroy them. We will show the galaxy that the Zorvani Empire will never fall." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The Empire was already falling. It had been falling since the day they ignored the human warning, and now it was time to pay the price. The Alliance fleet arrived at Nexera Prime on a day that the galaxy would never forget. 10,000 ships filled the sky above the throne world. Human vessels flew alongside Kethari cruisers. Vorax warships formed battle lines with Luminari scouts. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. It was the hope of 1,000 worlds made real. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the planet below. Nexera Prime was beautiful in a harsh way. Cities of metal and stone covered every continent. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like a ring of steel. The Zorvani had built their empire from this world. Now they would die defending it. "All ships report ready," her tactical officer said. "Awaiting your orders, Admiral." Chen took a deep breath. 2 years ago, she had commanded a small fleet defending Earth. Now she commanded the greatest military force in history. The weight of that responsibility sat heavy on her shoulders, but she did not let it show. "Open a channel to the planet," she said. The communication officer made the connection. Chen's face appeared on screens across Nexara Prime. The Primarch saw her from his throne room. Billions of Zorvani saw her from their homes. They saw a small human woman with